So today on Artist Talk, we got Ben Mezrich and Andy Greenberg. I'm here sitting here with guys who are the ultimate whistleblowers. It's no surprise that you ended up having a book about, the Where's Waldo of our century.
Julian Assange, he invented the underground.
Is he a terrorist or is he a friend to humanity?
He likes leaks when they're about anybody but himself.
Similar to Mark Zuckerberg. He doesn't think that people should have privacy, but he doesn't want anyone to know about him. I saw this secret in action. These kids had made $6 million playing blackjack.
Wow. They just hacked like Sony and the CIA and the Senate, and they were like rock stars. Freedom is scary. One of my sources, he's trying to make 3D printable guns that we can make in our garage. That is scary.
I'm an optimist usually, but when I look at technology, sooner or later someone uses it for a very bad thing.
Oops. So today on Artist Talk, we got Ben Mezrich and Andy Greenberg. Ben is the author responsible for Accidental Billionaires and Bringing Down the House. Andy is a journalist with Forbes, and his new book is This Machine Kills Secrets. Thank you guys for being here. Ben, you wanted to be a writer since the age of 12. How did you know that?
I did. I've wanted to be a writer since I was little. My parents had a rule when we were little. They set a rule that we had to read 2 books a week before we were allowed to watch TV. So starting at age about 12, I became a speed reader, and I fell in love with books. So by the time I graduated from college, I knew that's what I wanted to be.
I mean, that's what happens when you tell your child to read 2 books a week.
Yeah. I talk to high school kids a lot, and I always say one of the best things you can do, if you figure out what you want to do early, you kind of have a leg up on everybody else. And since I knew, since I was very little, that all I wanted to do was be a writer, it was just a matter of figuring out what I could write.
That's great, because when I talk to children, I'm always saying the same things. Find the things that leave you curious, right, and allow that to be the fuel to what you want to do in the future, and then figure out a way to make money by it, and you have the happiest life.
Right, right.
And what about you, Andy?
I became a reporter because I just wanted to learn something new every day and tell people about it. As a reporter, you get to meet new people every day. You get to delve into these crazy underground worlds, and then you get to creatively explain it to people. You get to bring it out for the average reader. That's really cool. I just never get bored.
Ben, success didn't come with fiction, so when did you realize nonfiction was your calling?
I wrote a lot of medical thrillers, sci-fi kind of things. I wrote for the X-Files. I was like a fiction writer, and novel after novel kind of didn't do well. My career wasn't really going anywhere, and I actually had a stack of business school applications. I was going to go to business school because I owed about $2 million. I was in debt. I was massively in debt. And then I started hanging out in this local bar with these MIT kids, and they were these really smart math, science, geeky kids, and they had tons of money, and it was always in $100 bills. And I couldn't figure out why they had so many $100 bills. So I started hanging out with them, and then they invited me to go to Vegas. And that's kind of when I discovered nonfiction. I just started joining this team and started going to Vegas every weekend. And I saw this secret in action. These kids had made $6 million playing blackjack using the secrets of math and science, how to beat the game. And so I convinced them to let me tell their story, and that was my first nonfiction book. And then it's been nonfiction ever since.
So Andy, Ben says that he doesn't pick stories, the stories pick him.
He's a lucky guy in that case. I don't know. You feel like sources come to you?
Yeah, ever since Bringing Down the House and the MIT story and the movie 21, I get 20 to 30 a week of people pitching me.
Wow.
And it's everyone from people you've never heard of to famous people, but I get pitched them now, so I don't really pick my stories anymore. It's kind of, I go through the list of people who've come to me, I meet with them, and decide if it's something I want to get inside of over the next year.
Well, that's great. I mean, I'm no Ben Mezrich, I gotta say. I'm a reporter. I go out there every day to dig up stories. Sometimes they come to me, but usually I'm working my beat, which is not to say I'm actually hitting the pavement like reporters used to do, but I'm doing the equivalent of that on the web, Or I'm kind of in the hacker scene enough that I know what people are working on. I know when the kid is about to release this little box that can open 4 million hotel rooms around the world. Before he announces that he's done this on Twitter or on the web or whatever, I'm talking to him and I'm in the hotel testing it out with him. But I had to find him, just through my sources.
So it's no surprise that you ended up having a book about, the Where's Waldo of our century.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I just love, digging into the underground. And, Julian Assange wrote this book called Underground. He invented the underground. He's been underground his whole life. He's been on the move, this paranoid hacker, first running from his stepfather and then from the Australian Federal Police. And when I heard about him, I was like, this is the guy, and he's also brilliant, and he can unpack these mathematical ideas, and when I met him, I was like, this guy is worthy of a book. I just hope to be the guy that writes it.
Explain hacktivist, the term hacktivist.
Well, we've had hackers for decades now, but they started out just as like guys trying to figure out how stuff worked. Then they realized they could work some scams through. They could make free phone calls. Then they realized they could steal credit cards. Then that's really only when the mainstream media became aware of hackers, or these evil cyber criminal hackers. Mm-hmm. But there's always been this idealistic thread of hackers too, who see that they can not just work this to their advantage, but reshape the world, And now this has almost become the mainstream of hackers. Maybe the biggest collection of hackers are groups like Anonymous.
Now, do you look at these guys as criminals, the guys that are exposing these secrets and these processes? Are they criminals, or are
Some of them are definitely criminals. It all depends on who you're talking about. It's hard to say when you look at someone like Julian Assange. I mean, definitely some things he's done have been bad and some things he's done have been good.
Is he Paul Revere?
I don't know about that. I think he's more like the British, than Paul Revere. He's like the guy that Paul Revere might be warning us about. But that's not to say that he's a bad guy.
What is he? Is he a terrorist? Is he a traitor? Or is he a friend to humanity?
He's like the harbinger of things to come, He's like the owl that flies at midnight, or whatever Hegel wrote about. He's basically taken tools that are available to everybody, like cryptography tools, and he enabled whistleblowers, anybody, you and me or whoever, to leak any information that we have anonymously. And that was a kind of freedom of information that the internet always promised that, but he kind of brought it to its fruition. He's like the guy who's announcing this new age of total freedom of information. I'm not saying it's it's a good thing.
I mean, it sounds like once that door is opened, it's really hard to go back, and Julian Assange is one of the people who opened the door, I think. But the door was there. He didn't make the door, but he certainly opened it.
Completely, yeah. People like freedom of information. Hillary Clinton likes to talk about freedom of information, but when it comes back to her, and the freedom of information is like a huge leak of her secrets and the State Department's secrets.
Okay, so maybe their perspective is freedom of safe, what they deem
exactly,
safe information.
Yeah, but freedom's a complicated thing. One of my sources just said the other day, freedom is scary, He's trying to make 3D printable guns that we can make in our garage. That is scary. This idea, you can just download a gun and use a machine in your garage to print it out. You don't need to buy it in a store. You don't need any ID or regulations to get it. That's scary, but that's freedom. That's the future of technology.
I love this show and these conversations because the small things you say, the small little punctuations, and the things that you're saying are incredible gems.
I'm an optimist usually, but when I look at technology, sooner or later someone uses it for a very bad thing. In general, it's going to trend more and more till bad things, I think. And so that's definitely going to get worse and worse.
Well, I agree that eventually the people who just want to create chaos will get a hold of stuff. But I always think it's better to know about the possibilities. When this hacker showed me how to open 4 million hotel rooms around the world, that's scary, but that's good to know, because then it's going to cost millions of dollars for the hotel companies to fix this. But I want it fixed, because probably some other kid knew about it. He didn't tell me about it. He just went and broke into a few hundred hotel rooms and just stole whatever he felt like. So, information
comes out, I agree. But
yeah.
There's a good way for information to come out and a bad way for information to come out.
Yeah.
I always read about the guy who sneaks onto an airplane with a bomb just to show that there's a flaw in the security. Well, that guy screwed up a lot of people's week, and he screwed up an enormous amount of money for a lot of people, when he could have certainly just gone to the airline and said, you have a security flaw.
I don't buy it. I think that guy did a service.
No, I don't. I hate that guy. And I know I hate that guy because I've been the guy sitting on the tarmac for 9 hours because some college kid wanted to show that there was a security flaw that we all know about.
Well, it's funny because I agree with both of you.
Yeah.
It is annoying,
yeah,
but it's way better.
It's better than someone doing
looking
it,
up
but
and you're on that plane.
Yeah.
head into the ground in Pennsylvania.
Right, I agree.
Because you've got to save everybody in the Pentagon and you want to live yourself.
But then I look at that kid's motivation. His motivation wasn't necessarily just to show us there's a flaw. It was to be the guy who showed us it was a flaw. And it kind of brings me back to Julian Assange, which is, does he really do it because he wants to change the world, or does he do it because he wants to be famous?
Well, for so long he was doing what he did in a way that was totally secret. You know, he was a teenage hacker, you know, who did not want to be caught. He did not want it to be public at all. And you know, maybe he had like some notoriety in his little hacker circles in Australia, but he was hacking the Pentagon and wasn't really telling anybody about it. You know, that's a
It's more the idealistic kind
yeah,
of.
that's a true believer. What about Zuckerberg? You know, do you feel like he just wanted to be famous or just wanted to make money?
Zuckerberg wanted to meet girls, but I know he gets mad when I say that.
Same
so
thing, right?
Specifically, Zuckerberg and Eduardo were two geeky best friends who were socially kind of outcast, weren't in the cool finals clubs, didn't get to go to all the cool parties. He's a genius, no question about that, and he created a website that allowed people like him to be social stars and to be able to meet girls and to make friends without ever leaving their dorm room. But definitely it wasn't to get famous. He doesn't care about money. Zuckerberg doesn't care at all about money. He would give all his money away. It means nothing to him, and it never has.
I won't.
No, listen.
I need some first,
He was
but
17 years old when he made a website, and Microsoft offered him $1 million for it. And he just said, no thanks. And he just gave it away for free.
He turned down $1 million
He did.
because he wanted to give it away.
He's not greedy. He's not, he's megalomaniacal a little bit in that he wants everyone in the world to be on Facebook. That's his goal, that everyone is on Facebook, but he thinks that'll make the world a better place. So once we're all on Facebook and we can just know what everyone's doing and share our pictures and share our lives with each other, we're one community and we can't hurt each other.
He really believes that it makes the world a better place to like slowly erode personal privacy.
Yes, he does believe that. He doesn't think that people should have privacy. He thinks that privacy is holding us back. If you're sharing with one another, it's like you're in your same family. But what's interesting is that the younger generation, and when I talk to kids who are 15, 14, they don't care about privacy. I've never met a 14-year-old who cared about privacy. They want to be famous. They want everyone to know all their stuff. And so in one respect, Facebook is giving younger people exactly what they already want, which is the ability to be famous to their friends, to put a picture up and have all your friends comment on it. That's an internal need in young people. And I think the walls are going to come down, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a matter of living with the new world, which is what Facebook's done.
The world is becoming a different place, and what these guys are doing, these guys are liberating.
Right.
They're like setting people free to be the stars of their own lives and their own influence. It's like, well, who influences you? Me. That's going to start to be the answer out in the world. You're going to start to hear more and more younger kids going, I look up to myself. I like my own taste. I'm into this, I'm into that. And we hear that, but if you let the media tell you, they're going to tell you from their perspective because theirs is based on how they make money. But if you really look at where the traffic is, it's in self.
Right.
It's in the discovery of self. And as you said, in the projection of self to the community. Is it okay to ask you, where were you meeting Assange? And how were you guys talking? Where did you talk? What were you doing?
He's tough to talk to. I started out sort of imagining what if I could put Julian Assange on the cover of Forbes magazine where I'm a reporter. And next thing I knew, I was chatting by encrypted message with this guy in Iceland who sort of was a few steps down I don't want to say Julian Assange is a terrorist, but there are kind of cells of WikiLeaks, and half of them don't know what the other ones are doing. I had to go through all these intermediaries. This guy named Penguin X in Iceland first, he was the first guy to talk to me.
Penguin X?
Yeah, this kid, Penguin X.
I'm in the wrong business.
And then, so then I went to Iceland, I met with a few WikiLeaks folks there, and then I sort of chilled out in Iceland waiting for Assange to give me the go-ahead to meet with him. Nobody really knew where he was at the time. He wouldn't even tell me what city it was going to be, and I was ready to fly anywhere in Europe. And turned out to be London. At the time, he was about to start staying in this country house where he would be under house arrest for 2 years. But I met him in London, and we kind of hit it off, and we talked for hours. He's the most fascinating source I've ever spoken with, probably. And that was the only time I've ever met him in person. After that, we chatted over Instant Messenger. He uses this encrypted instant messaging program.
What?
I love it.
And he called me up once to yell at me about a story I wrote. That's kind of our relationship now. I mean, he's kind of a one-night stand kind of source. You know, you write something about him, and then you're often on the wrong side after that. He doesn't like a lot of the stuff that's written about him, and you're either with him or against him. And I get the feeling that these days he thinks that I'm against him. I think I'm on his side more than 95% of journalists out there. But
I mean, isn't he sort of doing the same thing? He's just sort of bringing, you know, truth to the light. It's kind of like the mirror looking at the mirror looking at the mirror.
Well, that's the thing. He likes leaks when they're about anybody but himself. But when his criminal case was leaked in Sweden, or when stuff from WikiLeaks was leaked, he freaked out like anybody would. You know, WikiLeaks had its own leaks. He tried to make everybody sign these non-disclosure agreements within WikiLeaks, which is like the most ridiculous thing ever. You know, if you like leaks, you have to like leaks about yourself too.
Well, it's similar to Mark Zuckerberg, who believes in freedom of information, and Facebook will make us all free because we'll communicate, but he doesn't want anyone to know about him. So it's a similar thing, I think. It's a double-edged sword when you open those doors.
You both seem to have a David and Goliath obsession, telling stories of rascals and Robin Hood types trying to game the system. Do you identify with these characters personally? In a weird way, I do. I'm a patriot, I love my country. But at the same time, there's that thing that's in most artists for humanity. Because think about it, do we really do our art for ourselves, or do we do it for others?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we definitely don't do it for the authorities, right?
No.
The authorities are not fun to make art for. It's much more fun to like live in a world without rules.
So do you identify with these guys?
I definitely do. I mean, I love the whole Robin Hood or David versus Goliath kind of theme, the idea of young, smart people taking on an evil institution, or not necessarily evil, but like the casino. I mean, the casino is this giant, massive organization built to take your money. I love casinos and I spend a lot of time in them, but they try and trick you. I mean, everything in the casino is designed to take your money. From the carpets they choose, which are purposefully ugly so you keep your eyes up, to the lights, to the buzzers. They do tons of studies on what lights make you spend more money, and to the aromatherapy. There's actual, smells that make you spend more money. All of these things are researched. So the idea of these Davids going on against that kind of bad Goliath is really a turn on to me, and I love the idea of young people taking on the system.
I'm sitting here talking to a guy who met the 6 students who went and said, you know what, Vegas is cool. Let me show you guys how to make some money, right? And wrote a book about it. And again, MIT students, not like derelicts or like,
good kids, smart kids.
Right?
Yeah.
Really super smart, well-educated kids who just thought, you know what? You guys are not really governing this sector enough, and we feel like we figured it out, so we're gonna go and test it, right? And then here's another guy who been basically a spy reporter. I love this, man. I noticed that the guy from LulzSec, am I saying it right?
Yeah.
They got one of those guys.
Yeah, this guy Sabu. He was like a 20-something guy on the Lower East Side. Like, he's one of your characters. He's like this hotshot, hot-headed, egotistical guy who just saw that he could take over the world, but a nerd. He's like a computer guy. And he led this rampage for a whole summer. LulzSec just like hacked every company. They just hacked like Sony and the CIA and the Senate, and like it just never stopped. And every day, as a reporter, it was like a bonanza. Like every day there was a story about what they were doing, and they were like rock stars. They were flouting it on the web. They were like posting these big manifestos. It turned out that the whole time he was actually an FBI informant, just to make the whole thing even weirder.
He was an informant the whole time?
Yeah, talk about conspiracy theories. There's a real conspiracy.
Wow.
But it was a fascinating thing to watch.
So how insecure are we in the information age?
I would say we're incredibly insecure. Just recently we saw the FBI, allegedly get hacked by Anonymous and leak 1 million Apple device identifiers, potentially putting a lot of users' privacy at risk. But the intention of that really was to show that the FBI actually had 1 million users, 12 million users' private data, And that is like a totally different thing. That's, I'm sorry, there's a naked woman. I have to stop talking about hackers for a moment.
It's okay.
Do you have another question, maybe?
Well, actually, I saw
I like the
earlier.
format of the show. I think this is a really very positive
This is very
format.
avant-garde. I like this.
What's the greatest story that's never been written?
What I think is the biggest story that I feel like I'm just waiting to have somebody really tell, and that's like the NSA, the National Security Agency. There've been some books about the NSA, but they are, you know, they're capable of doing things with information and surveillance and hacking that we don't understand. That they have more money, more people. We don't even know how many people, how much money. All that is classified. So, and all of it is hidden under so many layers of secrecy. You know, the NSA is this behemoth in the middle of the U.S. government. We don't know what they're doing, and they're probably the most badass hackers in the world. That's a story I would like to tell. I probably will never have a chance. You know, there'd have to be another 5 or 10 Bradley Mannings to bring out that information. Yeah.
Where do you see yourselves in 20 years?
That's a good question. My goal is to continue doing these stories and tell these incredible stories, but I definitely am moving more into the television and movies and just finding a wider audience for these kinds of stories. I'm working on a few projects right now. We're making the movie of Sex on the Moon, which will hopefully go into production at some point over the next year with the director who did Easy A and Friends with Benefits. And then my new book comes out next summer, and it's about a group of college kids who launched the entire online poker world out of their dorm room. And so pretty much, if you've played online poker, it was because of these kids who are now in hiding from the government in Antigua, and they're fugitives, and it's a crazy, crazy story.
Andy, what's your next story?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like there's this whole hive of undiscovered hackers in Berlin, actually. They're called the Chaos Computer Club, and they kind of run the show in Germany. They've like taken over the governments in a way that American hackers just haven't figured out how to do. So, I don't know, maybe that's a story for me. My wife and I are thinking about moving to Berlin.
Wow. Just want to thank you guys today, Ben and Andy. Incredible stories.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been fun.
It has been a very unique experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'm super enlightened, and so is our audience. Love to have you back.
You know, the NSA is this behemoth in the middle of the U.S. government. We don't know what they're doing, and they're probably the most badass hackers in the world.
I love the whole Robin Hood or David versus Goliath kind of theme, the idea of young, smart people taking on an evil institution.
What about Zuckerberg? You feel like he just wanted to be famous, or just wanted
No,
to...
he doesn't think that people should have privacy. He wants everyone in the world to be on Facebook.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you serious? I'm sitting here with David Sally and Cause, and this is ARTST Talk. Have you ever gotten into any legal problems?
Nothing that wasn't controllable.
You know, there's that fine line between creativity and just mania. I think if I wasn't a writer, I would be a neurotic, strange person that people would want to stay away from. It's like harnessing your OCD.
Harnessing my OCD. That's a genius.
Hey, I'm Joy Bryant, and I am a board sport enthusiast. I like to shred. And on my new show, Across the Board, I'm going to be shredding with the best of them.
Want to shred, yeah.
Yeah, I want to shred.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
My favorite friends, celebrities, athletes, artists. We're going to snowboard, we're going to surf, we're going to skateboard, we're going to have a great time.
Well, we both came over, went over some hurdles, a little obstacles today.
Yeah.
You break through shyness, and me.
Breaking through that skin.
What?
Tom, how's it going,
Good,
dude?
how you doing?
Good to see you,
I
man.
don't know if you're gonna make it or not.
No, I mean, 5 a.m. is tough.
What do we got right there? Shark, I see him right there. Oh. All right, come on. This is the frisky one here. Yeah, be careful.
Yeah, you have a reputation of pissing people off. Like your blog pisses people off.
It pisses people off. This face pisses people off, But sometimes I get along.
Did your dad, was he on you constantly telling you how to do it since he was in the business?
My dad was such a dick, because he'll always tell me I suck, and then when he's in front of other people, that's my son. That's my son, he's real good.
Jim.